many of the goals of community development to preserve affordable housing, to improve public health, to make housing more durable, to create local jobs, to improve the quality of the environment are also the very same things that retrofits can accomplish, right? They cut use of fuel and water and electricity in buildings, and so they save owners money, they make the house more comfortable and safe, they improve the indoor and outdoor air quality, and in the process we can engage residents. So we're on the right track. Then, the issue we looked at is that the majority of New York City's 1 million buildings, and particularly this was true in the area we were focusing on in Brooklyn and Queens, are actually 1 to 4 family homes. So we are humbly focusing on the smallest and probably one of the more efficient housing stocks in New York, but where about 35% of New Yorkers live. And one of the things that kind of came to us as a hunch, and still is still a hunch, but something we hope to be able to look into more, is that these homes were mostly built 5 to a lot at the same time with the same structure. And so we just have this belief that there may be a way to do this retrofitting more efficiently since they're so similar in structure and scale and size and materials. And we also found that there's an opportunity to reduce energy use. So this is coming from Plan YC's data that residential buildings actually use the biggest chunk of, generate the biggest chunk of carbon emissions in New York City at 35%. And so there's a lot of room for improvement. So there's all these good things. Energy reductions can improve individual and public health, make housing more affordable, make them more durable and comfortable, create jobs, improve the environment, maybe even contribute to world peace. But what I found kind of pounding the pavement and talking in many, many church basements and workshops and people's homes and co-op boards is that they weren't happening as fast as we would like. People were not kind of taking up these retrofit incentives that are out there as fast as we would like. And looked at kind of the rate in New York State, in the small home market, about 39,000 homes this year will take advantage of incentives to retrofit their houses. But if we continue at that pace, it will still take us 205 years to actually retrofit all the state's homes. So that's not good enough. So one of the things, the other thing we kind of discovered is kind of on the trail of talking to people is that no one knows anybody. I mean, I just wonder in this room, this is a question I ask in almost every presentation I give. Do you know anybody, or have you had a comprehensive energy assessment of your own home, or do you know someone else who has? Wow. Okay, so this is unheard of. It makes sense for this audience that there would be a good showing. But in most times when I go out to meet with homeowners and I ask that question, nobody raises their hands. And they never heard of a retrofit, and they don't know what it is, and they don't know what a comprehensive assessment is, and they don't know where to start, even if they're interested. Excuse me. So why isn't it happening as fast as we would like? Clearly, some of the work that Andy Padian is doing for multifamily buildings to address this obstacle is still an obstacle for those buildings and for the smaller buildings, that the upfront costs of retrofitting interfere because homeowners don't want to spend the money up front for something that generates payback long term. Because in this market, I've been trying hard to sell loans. And when I say that L word, people run from me screaming. It's just the time that we're in, and for very good reason. In many of the neighborhoods we're working in, there's a high foreclosure rates. Almost everybody does know someone who's lost a home, and so debt is really hard to deal with. The other thing is, even though for people like Andy and Ariella, it's an old idea to retrofit buildings to make them energy efficient, in many of the people I'm speaking with, it's actually a new idea, and it's an unfamiliar term and not something they know anyone who does, and so it takes some convincing to do it. And this little chart that's in front of you is from a report called Driving Demand for Home Energy Improvements. It's actually from a Professor Everett Rogers, who was trying to show how new ideas and new innovations kind of get taken up in the market. And what he found is that you need at least 15% of kind of early adopters to not only do it, but to be pleased with the results of what they found. So you have to kind of get a strong cadre of folks to experience this new innovation and then to go out and talk about it. The other barrier is that, it's still hard to do for a homeowner. You have to probably take a day off. You have to, you have to take a day off. You don't know who to call. It's a complicated process. It may take a long time. So for all these reasons, we decided to try this little pilot in Bedford-Stuyvesant with the Bedford-Stuyvesant Restoration Corporation. And at the time, I had been going to tons of meetings like this and tons of forums and talking about green jobs and green this and green that. And it seemed to me like a lot of people were talking, but people weren't doing anything. So I spoke to my friends, Wendell Rice and Tracy Capers at Restoration. We had lunch at Junior's one day, and I said, if we got even 4 people jobs and we got even a handful of buildings retrofitted, like we'd be doing something, So let's try it, let's do it. So we got some money through the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, to $25,000. To offer free energy assessments to all the people on one city block. So we had about 100 homes in the area that we targeted. We offered everybody a free energy assessment and some other perks for the block as well, and to try to engage residents in energy upgrades. And we also worked with Restoration's New York City Justice Corps to try to provide some training and work experience for folks coming out of the prison system who could learn about how to get into this field, and that we would talk about the results. So that small pilot was actually only modestly successful by a lot of counts. We got 15 homeowners to take us up on the free energy assessments. About 3 of them went through the Weatherization Assistance Program, who were eligible. 1 went through NYSERDA's Home Performance Program. But what many people did, smaller things. So 4 or 5 homeowners did improvements themselves that were recommended in the audit. About half a dozen people got energy improvements implemented by the Justice Corps, including pipe wrapping, weather stripping, changing light bulbs, putting in carbon monoxide detectors, doing some caulking, sort of the low-hanging fruit. It wasn't actually all we hoped for, but we did it as a trial, and I think we learned a lot along the way about actually what sells and what to do. And it proved to be true that this sort of small and modest pilot did generate some attention. And now we are launching a bigger effort in 6 neighborhoods around the city, and that's funded by Christine Quinn and the City Council and the Brooklyn Community Foundation. So what they're funding is really a retrofit campaign to go out and do outreach to folks. Each of these organizations, Bed-Stuy Restoration Corporation, Cypress Hills Local Development Corporation, CHIA, El Puente, Neighborhood Housing Services, Staten Island, and Sustainable South Bronx are all getting funding to have a full-time outreach worker on the ground to try to engage people in energy retrofits. And what we're doing is, in terms of strategy, is some kinds of strategies similar to actually what Ariel is doing in the city-owned buildings. We're trying to take advantage of people who, not take advantage of people, but to to get those early adopters going, and then to have them talk about it to their neighbors. So the neighbor-to-neighbor is the most powerful thing. So this is actually a picture of Christine Quinn's press conference. But the most important person at it, and the person people really listen to, is this woman in the middle. I don't know if we can point to this. Teresa Braithwaite, who's the black woman in the middle, who had her home retrofitted, and who came out from her own home with her walker, and who raved about how her house was so drafty and cold, and she was always getting sick. And now it's comfortable and it's warm and her bills are less, and it was just the greatest thing that ever happened to her. And when people like that come out and talk to their neighbors, if I come out, I just look like someone with an agenda, but when Teresa comes out, it looks like someone, who's very convincing. So we're trying to kind of take advantage of that strategy and replicate that over and over again. unlike some of the other speakers you heard from, we're the closest to the communities and the farthest away from the money. So we have to use all the existing programs out there. And there are a lot, and some are very generous and some are less generous. And how they're structured, that's kind of a given for us. So we are hoping, actually today, I don't know if anybody in the audience knows what happened today. The on-bill recovery was supposed to be voted on in Albany. It would make my life a lot easier if that would pass. Because like I said, people are very debt averse, and on-bill recovery, if you're not familiar with it, it's a way to pay for the cost of your retrofit on your Con Ed bill or on your National Grid bill. So what it lets you do is someone else finances it. Your $100 electric bill is decreased to $75, and now you pay, because of the energy savings, and now you pay $70 anyway, because you're paying, or $80. So you pay less, you pay $80. You pay less than you would have, but still you're paying more than you would have if you didn't have to finance it. So to me, it's a brilliant idea. There are other similar ideas like that. I think, the financing tools will continue to develop, and, we were actually part of a proposal that the city put in to try to raise money for New York City's PACE program, and that was awarded, and then the federal government kind of went to war with itself, and that program fizzled out. And that's a program where you can pay your retrofit financing on your property tax bills. So we're waiting for those good things to happen, but meanwhile we're going to keep reaching out to people and doing the best we can and keeping their names. The most encouraging thing that we find is that the people come, sometimes there's 20 people in a room and sometimes 100, but the people who actually come to the room generally do sign up for the programs. They really are interested, they want to know what they can do to make their homes better, and that's been the most encouraging thing, is how receptive people are. The hardest part for us is then what happens. Then there's a lot of fall off in terms of, a lot of reasons why it actually doesn't happen. But that's where we are. Thank you.